The Silent Heroes, Unveiling the Truth About Speech-Language Pathologists. Welcome to a groundbreaking episode of the BlackCEO Podcast. Today, we're about to challenge everything you thought you knew about speech-language pathology and entrepreneurship in healthcare. Our guide on this journey of discovery is none other than Shikilra Smith, the visionary owner of Invoice Solution. Shikilra isn't just the successful entrepreneur. She's a catalyst for change, a voice for the voiceless, and a beacon of hope in a field desperately in need of transformation. Her insights are about to shatter your assumptions and ignite a revolution in how we view and value these unsung heroes of communication. Imagine a world where those tasked with giving others a voice are themselves silenced by misconception and undervaluation. A world where professionals who unlock the power of communication for countless individuals are themselves misunderstood and underappreciated. This isn't some dystopian fiction. It's the harsh reality faced by speech-language pathologists across America today. We've been living with a pervasive myth, a comfortable lie we've all been telling ourselves. We've been labeling speech-language pathologists as mere speech teachers, neatly categorizing them alongside educators in our minds, and more damagingly, on our payrolls. But here's the earth-shattering truth. They're not teachers. They're so much more. Speech-language pathologists, or SLPs, are highly skilled professionals straddling the worlds of education and medicine. They're the unsung heroes working tirelessly in our schools, hospitals, and clinics, tackling not just speech issues, but a whole spectrum of communication disorders, from articulation to voice, fluency to language, and even life-threatening swallowing disorders. Their expertise spans a breathtaking range of human communication challenges. But here's where it gets truly mind-boggling. Despite this vast skill set, despite the years of specialized training, despite the critical role they play in our children's development and in rehabilitating stroke victims, SLPs are often paid on the same scale as teachers. Now, don't get me wrong, teachers are invaluable and deserve every penny they earn and more. But the disparity here isn't just unfair, it's a slap in the face to these medical professionals who've dedicated their lives to helping others communicate. Think about it. We're asking these professionals to wear multiple hats: educator, therapist, medical specialist. Yet we're compensating them for just one role. It's like asking a chef to be a farmer, butcher, and nutritionist all in one, but only paying them for cooking. The math doesn't just fail to add up. It crumbles under the weight of its own absurdity. This misalignment between skill and compensation isn't just a problem for SLPs. It's a societal issue that affects us all. When we undervalue these professionals, we're not just shortchanging them. We're potentially compromising the quality of care our loved ones receive. We're creating a system where burnout is almost inevitable, where the best and brightest might choose other career paths, leaving those who need their skills most in the lurch. But why does this misconception persist? Why haven't we corrected this glaring error in our understanding and valuation of SLPs? The answer, as Shikilra Smith pointed out in our interview, lies in education, or rather the lack of it. You see, colleges and universities, the very institutions tasked with preparing these professionals for their careers, are falling catastrophically short. They're not painting a realistic picture of the multifaceted roles and responsibilities SLPs will face in academic settings. They're not adequately preparing their students for the challenges ahead, nor are they instilling in them the entrepreneurial spirit that could help reshape the field. This educational oversight has far-reaching consequences. It means that many SLPs enter the workforce unprepared for the harsh realities they'll face. They're not equipped to advocate for themselves, to negotiate fair compensation, or to carve out new paths in their field. It's like sending soldiers into battle with outdated maps and rusty weapons. We're setting them up for a struggle, if not outright failure. But here's where the story takes an inspiring turn. Shikilra Smith, in her wisdom and righteous frustration, decided to do something about this broken system. She looked at the status quo and said, if change won't come from above, I'll create it from within. And that's exactly what she did. Shikilra founded Invoice Solution, a therapist-owned and operated company servicing the public school setting. But this isn't just another service provider. It's a revolution disguised as a business. It's a way of putting control back into the hands of SLPs, of giving them the tools and the platform to advocate for their needs and their worth. Now, you might be thinking, that's great for Shakira, but what about the rest of the SLPs out there? What about the systemic issues? And you'd be right to ask. Because while individual success stories are inspiring, they're not enough to change an entire field. We need widespread systemic change, and that change starts with knowledge. As Shakira so eloquently put it, knowledge is power. And it's this knowledge that's sorely lacking in the current system. So let's break it down, shall we? Let's shine a light on the realities that SLPs face every day, the challenges that our current system is failing to address. First, let's talk about caseloads. SLPs in schools often juggle caseloads that would make your head spin. We're talking about managing the unique needs of dozens of students, each with their own specific challenges and goals. It's not just about teaching them to pronounce words correctly. It's about helping them communicate effectively, express themselves clearly, and engage with the world around them. This isn't a one-size-fits-all job. It's bespoke therapy tailored to each child's needs. Let me share with you the story of Sarah, an SLP working in a public school in Chicago. Sarah starts her day at 7 a.m., preparing individualized therapy plans for each of her 60 students. Yes, you heard that right. 60 students. She sees groups of 4 students every 30 minutes throughout the day, barely having time to catch her breath between sessions. She works through her lunch break, using that time to complete paperwork and communicate with teachers and parents. By the time the school day ends, she's exhausted, but her work isn't over. She spends another 2 hours writing reports and preparing for the next day. This is not an exceptional case. This is the norm for many SLPs in our schools. Then there's the issue of required insurances. SLPs often need to carry professional liability insurance, which can be a significant expense. This is on top of any other insurances they might need as healthcare professionals. Yet, their salaries often don't reflect these additional costs of doing business. Let's not forget the toll on mental health. Working with children with communication disorders can be incredibly rewarding, but it's also emotionally and mentally taxing. SLPs often act as not just therapists, but advocates, counselors, and support systems for their students and their families. This emotional labor is rarely recognized or compensated. Consider the case of Michael, an SLP working with children on the autism spectrum. Michael doesn't just work on speech. He helps these children navigate social interactions, understand nonverbal cues, and express their needs and emotions. He celebrates every small victory with his students and their families, but he also bears the weight of their struggles. He's had to learn to manage his own emotions while being a pillar of support for others. The emotional toll is immense, yet it's not factored into his compensation or job description. And then there's the elephant in the room, workplace violence from students. It's a harsh reality that many SLPs face, particularly those working with students with behavioral issues. Yet, this risk is often overlooked when discussing their roles and compensation. Take the case of Lisa, an SLP working in a special education program. Lisa loves her job and her students, but she's been physically attacked multiple times by students struggling with severe behavioral issues. She suffered bruises, scratches, and even a concussion. Despite this, she's expected to continue her work with minimal support or acknowledgement of the risks she faces daily. This is not an isolated incident. It's a reality for many SLPs in similar settings. Here's another kicker. Many SLPs end up purchasing their own therapy materials. Imagine a surgeon being expected to buy their own scalpels or a teacher their own textbooks. It's unthinkable in most professions, yet it's a common reality for SLPs. All of this is compounded by a general lack of support. Many SLPs report feeling isolated in their roles, lacking the professional support networks that other healthcare providers often enjoy. Now, I can see some of you shifting uncomfortably in your seats. Maybe you're thinking, this can't be true. Surely someone would have done something about this by now. And that's exactly the point. Well, we've been blind to these issues for far too long. We've been comfortable with our misconceptions, content to lump what SLPs in with teachers and call it a day. But here's the thing. When we open our eyes to these realities, when we truly understand the scope of what SLPs do and the challenges they face, we can't help but see that change is not just necessary, it's urgent. So what would happen if we adopted this new perspective? What if we truly valued SLPs for the multifaceted professionals they are? the ripple effects would be enormous. First and foremost, we'd see a more motivated, more satisfied workforce. When professionals feel valued and fairly compensated, they're more likely to stay in their roles, to go above and beyond, to innovate and excel. This means better outcomes for the children they serve. We'd likely see an influx of talent into the field. When word gets out that SLPs are respected and well compensated for their diverse skill set, more bright minds will be drawn to the profession. This could lead to advancements in therapy techniques, more specialized care, and better overall outcomes in communication disorders. We might see a shift in how schools approach communication disorders. With empowered, fairly compensated SLPs leading the charge, schools might be more inclined to invest in comprehensive communication programs, benefiting not just students with diagnosed disorders, but all students. On a broader scale, this shift could lead to a greater societal understanding of communication disorders. As we recognize the complexity of what SLPs do, we might see more public awareness campaigns, more funding for research, and more support for families dealing with these challenges. But perhaps most importantly, we'd be sending a powerful message to our children. We'd be showing them that we value communication, that we're willing to invest in helping every child find their voice. We'd be demonstrating that we recognize and reward expertise, that we value professionals who dedicate their lives to helping others. Now, I can hear some of you thinking, this all sounds great, but how do we make it happen? How do we turn this vision into reality? And that's exactly the question we should be asking, because recognizing the problem is only the first step. The real challenge and the real opportunity lies in creating change. And this is where Shikilra Smith's example becomes so powerful. She didn't wait for the system to change. She became the change. She saw the gaps in the field and filled them. She recognized the need for advocacy and became an advocate. She understood the power of entrepreneurship in creating systemic change and became an entrepreneur. But here's the crucial point. We can't rely on exceptional individuals like Shikilra to solve this problem alone. We need widespread systemic change. And that change starts with each of us. If you're an educator, particularly if you work in higher education, it's time to reassess how we're preparing future SLPs. Are we giving them a realistic picture of the field? Are we equipping them with the advocacy skills they'll need? Are we encouraging entrepreneurial thinking that could help reshape the industry? If you're a school administrator or on a school board, it's time to take a hard look at how you're valuing your SLPs. Are you compensating them fairly for the full scope of their work? Are you providing the support and resources they need to excel in their roles? If you're a parent, it's time to advocate not just for your child, but for the professionals who help your child. Understand what SLPs do, appreciate the complexity of their role, and support efforts to value them appropriately. And if you're an SLP listening to this, know that your work is seen, it is valued, and it is crucial. But also know that you have the power to shape the future of your field, whether it's through advocacy, entrepreneurship, or simply educating others about what you do. You can be a catalyst for change. Because here's the thing, this isn't just about fair pay for SLPs. This is about how we value communication. It's about recognizing the complex, nuanced work that goes into helping people express themselves. It's about understanding that communication is at the heart of human connection, of learning, of growth. When we undervalue SLPs, we're undervaluing communication itself. We're saying that the ability to express oneself, to understand others, to engage with the world through language is somehow less important than other skills. And I think we all know deep down that this simply isn't true. So as we wrap up this journey through the world of speech language pathology, I want to leave you with a challenge. I want you to rethink everything you thought you knew about SLPs. I want you to see them not as speech teachers, but as the communication experts they truly are. I want you to recognize the complexity of their role, the breadth of their expertise, and the critical importance of their work. And then I want you to do something about it, because change doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens when individuals like you and me decide that the status quo is no longer acceptable. So what are you going to do? Will you speak up the next time you hear someone refer to an SLP as just a speech teacher? Will you advocate for better compensation and support for SLPs in your local schools? Will you share what you've learned today with others, spreading awareness about the true nature of this vital profession? Or will you go even further? Will you be the one to start a petition for fair compensation for SLPs in your district? Will you be the parent who stands up at the next school board meeting and demands better support for these professionals? Will you be the educator who revolutionizes how we prepare future SLPs for their careers? The choice is yours, but remember this: every time an SLP helps a child find their voice, they're not just improving that child's life, they're making our whole world a little bit richer, a little bit more connected, a little bit more human. And that, my friends, is worth fighting for. So let's change the narrative. Let's rewrite the story of speech language pathology. Let's ensure that these professionals are valued, supported, and empowered to do their best work. Because when we do that, we're not just helping SLPs, we're helping every child who struggles to communicate, every family navigating the challenges of communication disorders, and ultimately, we're helping to build a more understanding, more connected world. The power to change the world lies in our ability to communicate, to understand each other, and to make our voices heard. So let's use our voice to support those who help others find theirs. The time for change is now. The question is, are you ready to be part of it? Will you stand up and be counted? Will you be the voice for those who give others a voice? The future of communication, the future of countless individuals who rely on SLPs, and indeed the future of our society's ability to connect and understand one another rests in your hands. So I challenge you, don't let this be just another talk you've heard. Don't let these words fade away as you go about your day. Take action, be the change, because if not you, then who? If not now, then when? The silent heroes of communication have been silent for too long. It's time for us to speak up for them. It's time for a revolution in how we value speech language pathologists. And that revolution starts right here, right now with you. Are you ready to answer the call?